Nara Smith says that she is no longer a Tradwife, or she has never been a Tradwife. And a large part of the internet is responding, okay, but your content has spent years communicating something else. So, who gets to define a personal brand? The creator who knows the truth of their own life? The audience interpreting what they repeatedly see, or the culture that's already gave the images that they are producing meaning before they even posted the content online. Because this debate is not really about whether or not a woman can cook and couture, have 4 children, love her husband, and still be a working woman. Of course, she can. The more interesting question is, what happens when the identity you declare and the identity that your content communicates no longer are the same? Because you can reject the label, but you cannot correct the entire visual story that you've created with just one verbal disclaimer. You have to create new evidence. Welcome to the corner of the internet, where we study why some people, brands, and ideas become impossible to ignore. Hi, I'm Erica Ige. I study content psychology, creative strategy, and how to remain strategically human in a world that's increasingly being filled with AI generated sameness. Around here, we are not just creating more content for the sake of feeding the social media machine. We are becoming seen, remembered, and chosen. And today we are talking about Nara Smith, the Tradwife label that she continues to reject, and what the debate teaches every creator about the difference between who you are and what your content teaches people to believe about you. So, before we get into the branding conversation, I want to acknowledge something important. In this same interview cycle, Nara Smith has publicly spoken about her daughter Whimsy's cancer treatment and confirmed that she is now in remission. That is obviously a far more serious conversation than the internet debate about personal branding, and her child's health is not a part of my critique. It will not be used as evidence for anything in this video, and I sincerely wish their family, and especially little Whimsy, continued healing and privacy. What I'm analyzing here is specifically the public conversation around the Tradwife label and the content that Nara has created, because this has been a dialogue that's been ongoing for years at this point. For anyone who does not know who Nara Smith is, she is a model, content creator, mother, and now cookbook author who has become enormously popular in 2020 on TikTok through highly stylized videos of herself making food and household staples from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I do not mean from a jar of pasta sauce, adds a little garlic, and then calls that from scratch. No, I mean that if somebody in her household wants cereal, suddenly we are watching wheat become an agricultural concept. Somebody wants gum. Now there's a saucepan involved with, glycerin, and somebody wants a snack. Nara appears in a couture gown prepared to reconstruct the food chain supply. Like, I'm not trying to joke, but it's legit a whole masterpiece. The videos are calm, controlled, beautiful, softly narrated with a soft, whispery kind of ethereal voice, domesticated, fashion forward, and are often centered on cooking for her husband and her children. That combination of factors has made her instantly recognizable for anybody on the internet. Even if you don't know who I'm talking about, if you go and search her up, you're going to be able to put two and two together. She was not simply another recipe creator. She created a surreal little world of high fashion, glamorization, motherhood, marriage, domestic labor, and impossible levels of homemade effort all existed in the same frame. And because those images were kind of already casually carrying a cultural meaning, people also then began placing her inside the Tradwife conversation. Now, that also came to be about because she has talked about or shown that, her and her husband have a Mormon belief system, and just a few different other instances that happened, like when she went to the ballerina farm and drank raw milk. Like, there's a few other things that kind of gave her that label as well. But I want to define trad wife so everybody is kind of on the same page. Trad wife, or a traditional wife, is generally understood as a woman who embraces conventional gender roles centered on marriage, homemaking, motherhood, and domestic service, often with the broader cultural or political beliefs attached to it, such as conservatism, being MAGA sometimes, white supremacy, white patriarchy, like those kind of things. Now, Nara has repeatedly said that that label does not accurately describe her at all. She identifies herself as a working mother. I mean, still a model. She has never given up being a model. She has spoken about traveling for work and earning money, and the videos she makes, they are definitely highly like curated. So I don't know if she always is filming them at home or if she's filming them in a studio. I'm not quite sure. But and she also talks about sharing household responsibilities with her husband and receiving family and even hired support. All of those things don't necessarily align with the traditional homemaking role. I believe that she knows the reality of her life far better than anybody like me or any other stranger on the internet does. Obviously, we only see mere minutes of her day-to-day life. She is currently living the whole thing. But when it comes to her actual brand as Nara Smith, personal branding is not necessarily about what's actually going on behind the camera. Personal branding is about the meaning that we've been creating and what the camera is actually curating, and what also, once you put it together, is actually being shown. So this is where the disagreement begins with people with Nara. So Nara is saying you are using an narrow collection of videos to make assumptions about my full life. And that's fair. The audience is saying, however, when they look at these videos, especially considering that she's been creating content online, at least from when I've known her since 2020, that those videos are a collection of images you choose to represent your life. That is also fair. So I actually went and pulled up threads for you guys to look at what people are actually saying right now about this live, because this video is being filmed in real time from on the actual day that she actually released the interview that she did. So here's like the commentary that people are saying on threads right now. Like, Nara Smith is rejecting the Tradwife label. Brian Johnson, I have no clue who that is, says he no longer thinks he wants to live forever. Y'all, the grifts are ending because they both need science as it is right now to help them. Another thing that's really popular in the communities that believe in being a trad wife is make America healthy again. And a lot of those people don't believe in traditional science and also traditional medicine, which believes that you should get vaccines and you should, believe what you listen to your doctors and stuff like that. They believe in drink your own milk and more like natural immunity, herd immunity and stuff like that. And so this is what that, I don't know, what do you call it? It's not a tweet, a thread is saying. This person said, Nara Smith said trad wives don't cook and scare a Pelly or a machino and look straight off the runway. She says, I'm different from you barefoot and pregnant women. I'm rich. And again, and I want to make sure this is known, this is like legit what people are interpreting about Nara Smith from what they see in the content, right? Like, Nara Smith is saying like, these videos do not, show the full width of who I am as a person. But what people are seeing and what they're being presented with is like, okay, in one breath, you're saying like, yeah, no, I'm not a trad wife. In aspects, I believe that's true, because to me, when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is like a highly like curated vibe. I never fully believed that she fully believed that she was a trad wife. I have gone on pages where I'm like, oh, that person definitely believes that they're a trad wife. Like, they live out in the country, they living on the land, they are making their bread and stuff from scratch. Like, they are, they don't believe in like a lot of technology and a lot of stuff. A lot of their ideals are put in their content. And I do agree that, there is some big disconnect with Nara Smith's thing, because her brand is really high luxury and, very beautifully put together. While yes, she is always telling a story about like, yeah, I'm making this pasta for my husband, and yeah, I'm making this Kool-Aid pouch for my kid, but from scratch and with better ingredients. It always gave, I got money. It never gave like, I'm super conservative, middle America, lower to middle income. Like, it never gave that, at least to me. But I also can understand why some people might be like, you can reject it all you want to, babe, but you were still like attached to it. And this is what this person says, and then I'll be done with the threads for now. It said, Nara Smith wouldn't have to say I'm not a trad wife if she didn't spend years selling the fantasy, and I don't care how expensive or fancy her dresses are. And I've also seen like people do really, really deep breakdowns on this. But I just wanted to like show you guys that like what people's thought process is behind that. And again, all of it's fair, because personal branding lives inside of that tension, because the creator knows herself as a complete person, but the audience only knows what you're curating and putting out in person. People are going to take what they see and then decide who you are. Like, you can curate it well, but they're going to take what they see and decide who you are, which is why Like most of the people that you see in Hollywood and stuff like that, if you even go listen to Kiki Palmer, I heard her say this recently, that everything that you know about celebrities is curated. Every interaction you see, most things that happen are curated, and it's curated for you to get a certain impression of them. So that's the same thing slash same way you kind of want to think about your personal brand in your content. Your audience is not experiencing your intentions directly. They're experiencing the evidence. That's what you show, what you omit, what you repeat, what receives more visual emphasis, what role you're occupying in stories, what emotions your world is creating, and what those symbols already mean inside of a larger culture. For example, if I repeatedly show myself working through the night, praising extreme discipline, taking calls during family events, and celebrating the exhaustion as proof of I made it, I got ambition, I deserve to be rich because I'm hustling, even though I'm sacrificing everything important to me. But then in the next breath say, I don't support hustle culture, I support family first. The room is going to look around and be like, girl, then who's posting all that? Like, that's definitely not connecting, right? People aren't reading her incorrectly, not because they read her soul or what her intentions were incorrectly, but because they read her visible pattern that she's been creating again for the past 6 to 7 years. Personal branding is not about mind reading. If people have to read your mind when they are looking at your content, you're not doing it right. It's pattern recognition. So again, whether she wanted to be associated with those things or not, it is what it is. And it's also about some of the choices she's made for brand collabs and things like that too, that also continue to further this message. You also need to remember that when you're creating your personal brand and when you're creating your content, what you say, what you show, and what you symbolize again matters. I think that those are the three layers operating in every personal brand. So what you explicitly say, this is like your declared identity. I'm a working mother. I'm not a Tradwife. Cooking is something I enjoy. My husband and I share responsibilities. My videos are not a documentary of every hour of my life. These statements give us a really important context into how Nara Smith actually views her brand. And creators absolutely have the right to correct assumptions that do not reflect their reality or their interpretation of their brand. Layer two in your brand visually is what you repeatedly show. So this is your demonstrated identity. What does your audience consistently witness about you? In Nara's case, the content most people know features idealized domestic labor, from scratch cooking videos, marriage, motherhood, Americana, Mormonism, glamorous clothing, controlled environments, and a very soft presentation, flowers, being very feminine and light. Again, none of those things individually make somebody a trad wife, and cooking does not cancel out feminism. Being married does not necessarily remove your career. Wearing a beautiful dress while making cereal does not automatically enroll you in a political ideology. But repeated images of certain things create a pattern, and then patterns invite categories. It's just how the world and society works, and psychology is how your brain actually understands stuff too, by placing it in categories and patterns. Layer three is what these images already symbolize. So this is the cultural meaning. You are not introducing every visual element into a neutral room. The room already has furniture. Domestic femininity has a history. The devoted wife cooking for her family already has a history, especially in America. The beautiful, serene mother creating abundance inside the home has a history and ties closely associated with white patriarchy and Christianity. The perfectly dressed woman performing labor without any visible stress or struggle has a history. Those symbols existed before Nara Smith came along. They carry fantasies about what gender, class, race, beauty, motherhood, marriage, work, and femininity actually mean about women in general. So even if she is personally using these images without that ideology, people still attach those images to people. The audience may still interpret it through that cultural story and cultural lens that they already know. And the nuance is going to vary from person to person. So you have to make the nuance clear. That does not automatically mean that the audience is completely right about her. It means that the audience is not inventing this interpretation out of thin air. They are reading the available symbols that they have, right? And especially when you are somebody that's been creating content as long as she has had plenty of time to change this story or pivot into a different direction if she wanted to, not wait right before or right as she's getting ready to release a cookbook to kind of, try to change the narrative. So you may control the ingredients of your brand, but you do not completely control the cultural meaning people bring to the meal. You like these cookie metaphors? I kind of do. Anyways, I know some of you might be thinking, is Nara being misunderstood? I kind of think is yes and not entirely. I feel like she may be misunderstood when people assume that she has no career, no income of her own, no help, no professional ambition, or no division of labor inside her home. Those claims about the private mechanics of her life is something that the audience doesn't have access to. They're not privy to. Again, she has discussed repeatedly and also shown that she is a working mother, that she is modeling, that she is traveling, that she has household support and has built a culinary business. But she is also, on the other hand, not being completely misunderstood when people say her content uses the aesthetics and narrative codes associated with traditional Americana, American, middle of the country, Utah-esque Mormonism, domestic femininity. It plainly does. And that is the part of what makes the content distinctive. The mistake that I feel like a lot of people might be making right now is then trying to collapse all of that and saying her videos communicate an idealized domestic archetype. Well, yeah, like, yes, it does, of course. So that leads people into thinking, therefore, I know all her beliefs, her marriage, her labor arrangement, her politics, and her complete identity. No one knows that but her and maybe the people who she's closest to. Those are not the same claim, though. We do need to have enough media literacy to recognize cultural symbolism when you're creating brands or when you're creating your personal brand without pretending we have all the psychic access to the creator, because we don't. Media literacy is a thing, and everybody needs to understand that nuance is nuance, and that there is like what everybody is perceiving and also Nara's truth. Like, there are different things that can happen. So I think there just needs to be understanding on both sides. Anyways, let's read the room. Here's the uncomfortable truth of the matter. And this is mainly for content creators or people who want to create content or people who want to create a personal brand or even just a brand in general. You can benefit from having clarity of an archetype while resisting the limitations of the label. So in Nara's instance, Nara's content has become memorable partly because the world is so coherent. We understand mood, we know the voice, we understand her domestic setting, we know the fashion. We know that somebody in that family is about to request a snack that requires 11 business days of preparation. And that her consistency to creating that high level of content helped her become recognizable. Okay, we can understand that. But recognizability also has a shadow side, because once your audience understands the patterns, they give patterns names. And that name may be narrower, it might be more political or more restrictive than the creator initially intended. The same clarity that makes a brand easy to remember can also make it difficult to evolve with. So like right now, she is coming out with a cookbook and she's trying to evolve. Maybe she's trying to tap into a wider, more accessible audience. Maybe she is not trying to appear as aspirational or out of touch or luxurious. Maybe she's trying to gather more people to buy her books. But that, I feel like that would have had to happen earlier than now when she's trying to sell this book. I think that this happens a lot, again, with other types of content creators as well. Like when a comedian wants to be taken seriously for a role, like they sometimes have a hard time not being typecasted, or an educational content creator wants to show more personality, or a motherhood creator wants to, create an identity outside of parenting in her content. but you've been creating for a while and your audience has spent years being trained to accept only one version of you. And now you as a creator, you're getting frustrated that that one podcast interview did not completely reorganize your audience's brain. You cannot verbally rebrand faster than you visually retrain your audience. Let that one sink in. This is also too why you need to make sure that you're world building when you are creating a brand, because Nara just didn't post recipes. She designed an environment, the clothes, the voice, the pacing, the kitchen, the lighting, the relationships, the recurring act of making something elaborate for her family. All of those choices combined tell us this universe that you are entering when you are watching me involves these thoughts or these things. An audience do not just binge again random facts. They return to recognizable patterns. The world that she curated is a major reason why her content works. But worlds communicate values even when the content creator never explicitly announces it. Last thing I want you to take away from this is my be seen, be remembered, and be chosen framework. Nara is also a fascinating example of the power and potential trap inside of this visibility framework. She became seen through contrast. At the time that Nara Smith came out, nobody was cooking in couture. Nobody was talking the way she was talking to create recipe content. Nobody was really talking about creating food from scratch and about why she did it. Like it was elaborate from scratch. It was high fashion from scratch. It was calm narration from scratch, and young motherhood, and also like kind of like domestic life rendered through fantasy, what somebody would probably curate if they wrote a character. Like it stood out because of those things. Because if you think about other people creating cooking content, it is not like that at all. It's just not like, I had never seen anything like it before. So it stood out and it grabbed people's attention. And when you grab that massive visibility, it makes it easy to be like, okay, this is what's working. Let's repeat a pattern. And that's where Be Remembered comes in. She became remembered because the world became coherent of the fact that, oh, that voice, that's Nara. Her wearing these crazy dresses while cooking. How did she not get anything on them? How did she not get dirty? That's Nara. The kitchen, oh, her kitchen looks so fancy. Like she must make a lot of money. Does she work, or is that like all from her husband? That's Nara. The extreme crazy requests from family and the extreme crazy, like, I don't know, 5-6 hour process sometimes to make regular ass food that we all buy from the store. That's Nara. You could even almost parody it because it was so distinct and recognizable. And honestly, it's a parody of it is one of the clearest signs that a creator has become culturally legible. People know the pattern well enough to imitate it, but they can't be it. And Nara Smith was chosen because the attention had somewhere to go. She landed brand partnerships. Like I remember when she made a cake from scratch and it was to make it look like a purse that she wore, and she brought out the purse and she also brought out, the cake that she made. It came with more modeling gigs. Now she has a cookbook and she's also growing a culinary business. So all of these things had somewhere to go, but they wouldn't have been able to go anywhere if she wasn't easy to remember. And also if people didn't attach certain things to her, like luxury, high-end couture, modeling. Her husband, oh, they model. You know what I mean? Like certain things became distinctive about them. It had certain strong, like visual, memorable associations. And those strong associations are extremely powerful. And they are also really difficult to renegotiate when you're trying to get out of them. So, can she actually rebrand? Yes, I think she can, but she can't do it through denial alone. And I do not mean that she needs to go like expose the private parts of her marriage, show her children more, film every employee, or prove that she has feminism, right? She does not owe really any of us any unrestricted access to her life. But if she wants to publicly rebrand and carry a broader meaning and kind of distance herself from being a Tradwife or the Tradwife label, then she needs to show more behind the scenes of the culinary business being built. She needs to show her thought pattern behind the book and the creative direction. She might need to show more modeling work. I feel like, unfortunately, with her child having cancer, that's probably the first time people actually really saw Nara Smith as a human, because before then they didn't see her as a human. They saw her as this like ethereal creature that was cooking these elaborate meals for her family, and that was a model and had a nice kitchen and like popped all these kids out and like got back slim. You know what I mean? So she can't replace the old evidence through it. She kind of has to complicate it initially and add dimension to it so that the old category of what she was fitting in is not the only thing people are paying attention to. It's kind of almost like a hand trick. Rebranding is not just about like announcing, oh my God, you all misunderstood me. Rebranding is kind of repeatedly showing that, hey, there's more here to this pattern than you may already know. And if you've ever seen people rebrand or even brands kind of shift their branding, they do it over time through repetition. Like it just slowly goes that way. It doesn't just be like, this is the new change and then that's it. No, it just doesn't work. You cannot argue people out of a brand association. You have to give their brains a larger pattern to check from. This is the thing that you should take away with this. I know this video is getting like really long-winded, but it's a really good deep dive. I wanted to give it the breath that it needed. This is where you need to stop watching people like Nara Smith as a celebrity discourse and start reading your own room yourself and audit the gap between where your intended identity and your interpreted identity are, right? So you need to ask yourself, what do I say that I represent? What do my last 20 posts actually show that I represent? What emotion does my content repeatedly create? What role do I play in my own stories? What a stranger assigned to me? What assumptions am I benefiting from that people are making about my content that I'm benefiting from? And what assumptions about my content frustrate me? And have I created visible evidence that complicates those assumptions, or am I expecting people to know things that I rarely show? You may say you're funny, but your content is kind of professionally sedated. You may say that you care about sustainability, but every video it shows you encouraging buying more clothes or buying more things or hauls. Those things are not aligning, right? Again, this does not mean that every part of your identity must become content. Privacy is allowed. I do not show my marriage on my page. I don't talk about it. I do not show my daughter on my page. I don't talk about her like that. But you cannot demand that the audience that you're building also understands from that, right? Like if I was trying to become a mom creator but then not showing my kid or like not even talking about her, I couldn't think that people would then associate like, oh, she's creating mom content. People know I'm a mom because I mention it, but I'm not curating content around that. People are going to interpret what's visible, right? You are a full person. Your brand is designed to be a window into that. And if you are a brand that is not centered around a person, you still have a brand world that you need to be building, and your world is still designed around it. Like the way that you frame it in your content definitely does impact what people believe about it. So you have to make sure that it represents what you want. And if you are too close to your own content to see what it's communicating, that is exactly what I examine in a content audit. I look at the gap between what you say you want to be known for and what your content actually is currently teaching people to associate with you. We identify your strongest patterns, the misleading signals, the missing evidence, your offers or services or products, the things you're trying to launch, put out into the world, and the changes that you could be doing to help you be seen, remembered, and chosen. And if you want to get started with that, then you can click the link below and book a call with me. Just most importantly, at the end of this, I want to say Nara Smith is allowed to say that the Tradwife label does not reflect the full reality of her life, and her audience and the broader audience is also allowed to recognize that her content uses many symbols that make the label feel plausible. Both things can be true. Your personal brand, again, is not only just what you say, it has meaning created between your intentions, your visible choices, and the culture that's interpreting them. So tell people who you are, but most importantly, show them enough consistently to believe you. Read the room.